Good evening. This Shabbat is referred to as Shabbat Nachamu, the Shabbat of Consolation. For the next 7 weeks, we will read special Haftarot taken from the book of Isaiah, and which are filled with hope and encouragement for the future of the Jewish people. Consolation, as we all know, is a very important and practical mitzvah in Judaism. We often refer to it colloquially as paying a shiva call. But very often, many people feel at a loss of exactly what to say during Shiva. After all, what can you say? So the halacha provides us with certain guidelines of what to and what not to say during Shiva. Some of these laws are actually derived from our Haftorah. So let's take a look. What is the Haftorah referring to? We have all just experienced Tisha B'Av, reliving the tragedies of all that she represents, from the destruction of the temples through 2,000 years of tragedies and struggles. And now the Navi tells us the time has come to console ourselves. This Haftorah, which is taken from Isaiah chapter 40, begins with the famous words, Nachamu, Nachamu, Ami. Be consoled, my people. And all the commentaries are sensitive to the fact that the Haftorah begins with a double expression, Nachamu, Nachamu. So how does the Nechama of Jerusalem differ from all other consolations? That it can only be expressed as a double? When someone grieves over a personal loss, nicht uns gedacht, we realize that we could never at all fully comfort the mourner, save by one act, by only one true consolation, by allowing the dearly departed to walk right through the door. That would be certainly the best possible consolation. But of course, as we all know, and the mourner knows better than anyone else, this is an actual impossibility. So we must try our best to achieve our second option. We have to emphasize with the mourner. We must first stress that perhaps, if it's applicable, that we too have experienced tragedy. And we somehow overcame it, somehow survived. Yet at the same time, we must emphasize that we realize that the mourner that we're visiting, their mourning is unique to that mourner alone. In other words, we need to acknowledge that we can never, ever truly understand what the mourner is going through. The most we can express is something along the lines of the famous letter written by Abraham Lincoln to a mother who lost 5 sons in the Civil War. Lincoln wrote, "I feel how weak and fruitless must be any words of mine which should attempt to beguile you from the grief of a loss so overwhelming." One of the things that we should never say, this is in the halacha, is something along the lines of, "Oy, what can we do? This is God's will." Now, this statement is, of course, true. But the mourner doesn't want to hear it, because it implies that God caused your own personal suffering, maybe arbitrarily, or he hates you. Rather, one should instead emphasize the wonderful life and accomplishments of the deceased, and that he or she surely resides in the highest levels of Gan Eden. Furthermore, at the same time, it is important at this time to impress upon the mourner that we Jews uphold the belief in resurrection with perfect faith. Yes, we don't have it now, but this is indeed one of the 13 principles of Judaism. We claim the amunah, the perfect faith, that the mourner will one day achieve true and authentic consolation with tchiyat hametim, the resurrection of the dead, that our loved ones will one day return to us. We see this in the Haftorah. The prophet says, Kol korei bamidbar, panu derech Hashem, yashru barava misila le'elokeinu. A voice is heard in the wilderness. Let every valley be raised, every hill and mountain made low. Let the rugged ground become level, and the ridges become a flat plain. What does he mean by this? Right now, the mourner's life is filled with scraggly mountains and peaks, which are impossible, seemingly, to overcome. But Hashem says, don't worry. One day, all those mountains will be made straight. Normalcy will once more reign. Although we can learn much about average, regular consolation from our Haftorah, the Haftorah's main function is directed toward the people of Israel, the historical people of Israel, and speaks toward the double consolation at the end of days. What is the double consolation? How fortunate we are that we live in a generation of double consolation. After witnessing the catastrophe of the Holocaust, our generation almost immediately were consoled with the creation of the State of Israel. From its humble beginnings as a fragile, fledgling country to a first-rate nation, a superpower on the international stage, a first among equals. And yet, we cannot experience true peace, true consolation, true Nachamu, so long as that ugly, unprecedented, and unknown scourge among the likes of any such scourges, anti-Semitism, afflicts the world as an incurable disease, like a pandemic, which unfortunately still flourishes on the face of the earth. Hence, there is a double consolation. The creation of the State of Israel, that's our first consolation. The second is yet to be, when anti-Semitism is finally vanquished forever. So the Navi comforts us with a double comfort. And from our perspective, we can easily see that just as the State of Israel came into being almost overnight, in the blink of an eye, so too anti-Semitism will also disappear with the coming of Mashiach Tzidkenu. And that faith is so strong that it will still comfort us even now. May HaKadosh Baruch Hu grant us our true double consolation. May we be zocha to see Mashiach Tzidkenu. May God remove all plagues, coronas, Delta virus, whatever is out there, save us from it. And may we truly be able to see the double consolation b'mhera b'yameinu, speedily and in our days. Thank you.